So yeah, you're probably thinking, hey, it's just innocent clickbait. There's really no harm in that. But after watching this, I think you might change your mind. Let's head over to the swamp and I'll explain. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the swamp. Okay, I'm sure we've all seen and experienced it on all the social media platforms. And there's nothing new about it. It's probably been used as a selling ploy since people started selling stuff. But here's the difference and why it pisses me off so much. The majority of it is just innocent exaggeration, and we all recognize and accept it as such. But now, so many people or social media creators seem to have no problem crossing that line and pushing it to the extreme. Even going so far as just outright lying. And their motive is obvious, to get more views or sell more product. So to me, as a social media creator, I see it as an honesty dilemma. Just how dishonest or unscrupulous are they willing to be? Before I give some examples of this clickbait problem or false advertising, because that's what it really is. And that's illegal. The Federal Trade Commission has all kinds of laws against misleading and deceptive practices, which is exactly what some of this clickbait is. And it covers the whole spectrum of niches. It doesn't matter. It could be health videos, news videos, left-wing and right-wing, golf instruction videos, which as some of you may know, I used to do. Language videos, even religious videos. No one seems to be immune to it. Here's some examples of what I'm talking about. Okay, I watch a lot of crazy shit on YouTube. Even they can't figure out my personal algorithm sometimes. And these examples are notorious for way over the top and totally deceptive clickbait. It's videos on like Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids, ghosts, and all kinds of other paranormal type shit. Personally, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I just watch it for the laughs. Anyways, their thing is usually claiming video proof or video evidence or actual footage. And then they show a picture in their thumbnail showing like the best picture I've ever seen of a UFO or a Bigfoot or even the Dog Man or the Mothman. And don't forget the Jersey Devil. Yeah, so me, being the sucker that I am, I'll click on it. And lo and behold, it's nothing like their claim. And because they usually put the best stuff at the end, I'll keep watching and waiting for the good part, but it never comes. So yeah, now I'm pissed. And the only thing I can do is quit watching that particular channel. But so what? They don't give a shit. They know there's over 2.5 billion other potential viewers or suckers like me that are going to fall for it too. I'm sure they see it as a never-ending supply of suckers. And they will end up getting more views and watch time than they probably deserve. Here's a good analogy. You know I love using analogies. Okay, it would be like claiming or advertising to be the best lover on the planet. Well, believe me, you're going to get much more than your fair share of action. Who the hell talks like that? Best lover, action. I'm just not sure what I can get away with saying here. But you get my point, whatever boastful lie about your sexual prowess might be. So yeah, you're going to get plenty of action. But when they realize you were bullshitting them, well, that's it. Now they're going to be pissed off and never coming back for more. But who cares? I already got what I wanted. And I know there'll be plenty more suckers out there falling for the same deceptive scheme. Okay, here's a few more examples of how these creators push the envelope with their outright lies. I can't tell you how many times I've seen these claims. And because I hope it's true, I click on them. Well, one of them is that The View, that ridiculous liberal TV talk show with all those ignorant, crazy bitches spewing nothing but nonsense every day. So anyways, they'll claim The View has been canceled. I've probably seen that dozens of times over the last 10 years, and it's still on the air. Or how about this one? Whoopi Cushion Goldberg has finally been fired. Or Joyless Behar or Sonny the Houston have been fired. Yet they're all still there. And because I so much want it to be true, I'll probably keep falling for it until it is. All right, how about this one? Ilhan Omar, or mentally ill Han Omar, that dumb Muslim congresswoman who's part of the squad. Well, I've seen so many times how she's been removed or thrown out of Congress. And if you're going to lie about that, well, you might as well throw in that she's been deported too, which they do over and over again. I'm not going to show you any of these thumbnails or titles because these people can do whatever the hell they want to. It's none of my flipping business. I just wanted to vent my frustrations. and yeah, it might be considered a frivolous subject, but so what? I spent half my life being frivolous. It's fun. Besides, like Tarzan once said to Boy, and I quote, "Boy, think too much, him forget to laugh." And I thought this was kind of weird. I was already doing this video on clickbait. It takes a few days. And my wife, Pam, she never has a clue to what I'm working on. Anyways, she was watching a video on releasing animals back into the wild. And the only reason she clicked on it was because the thumbnail was a picture of a huge gorilla being released. That's it. That was the only picture on the whole thumbnail. And Pam loves all the gorilla vids. Well, she watched the entire 49-minute video with nary a gorilla to be seen. Not one. And Pam is royally pissed off now, as she should be. Now, I am going to show you this one, and you tell me if you don't agree. Okay, if you saw this title and thumbnail, what would you think? Here's a close-up of it. Sure, they never actually say that they're going to release a gorilla in the title or description, but we all know that's what they were insinuating or wanting us to believe. And I think that's pure, unadulterated deception. Just another sneaky way to lie without actually lying. And the sad thing about it is, if they were just honest about what was in the video, it probably still would have done pretty good. Maybe not the million views it got, because most of them probably clicked it to see the gorilla. But at least people aren't going to be mad, and they'll come back for more. So yeah, the list of examples is never ending. But nothing so far could really be described as malicious or deprived or certainly not evil. But here's some that I actually think are. Here's some of the worst of what I'm referring to. I've seen so many of these, I can't count them. It's videos claiming that so-and-so just died. I'm sure you've seen them too. And it's usually a famous celebrity or a well-known politician. I've seen them with Joe Biden or Donald Trump or the late Queen Elizabeth before she died. And even the Pope. And some of the celebrities were like Clint Eastwood. They always seem to pick the elderly. I guess they figure it'd be more believable. But just recently I saw that Oprah Winfrey passed away. Yeah, they had a big rest in peace with the dates she was born and died on. I didn't watch it because I couldn't care less about Oprah. And I don't know, maybe the video says something like, "Oprah is dead to me," after she said or did something they didn't like. To cover their blatant lie. But you can see how underhanded and deceptive it is to put that out or make that claim. So think about how deviously sneaky that is. They know they're going to beat everybody to the punch on so-and-so's death because they fucking made it all up. And they're going to get shitloads of views, because everyone's going to be curious as to how they died. I think that's pathetic, just pitiful. So yeah, I consider that kind of lie pretty malicious, and it could be devastating and harmful to certain people. But this next one is truly disturbing to me. And I'm going to show you this one. Okay, look at this. Talk about taking advantage of either the sickly or overly trusting or even weaker-minded people. To me, this is actually out and out evil. Here's another close-up in case you can't read it. And being a Bible-believing Christian, I'm utterly appalled. So what makes it so bad? Well, think about it. Unfortunately, there's plenty of gullible people out there. And when the one lying to them is a well-known, trusted, so-called man of God, well, that makes it even worse. So now the sick people and the healthy ones, well, they no longer need to be concerned with their disease. No need for a doctor anymore, because they believe they've been healed by God simply by reciting a certain prayer. And I know what they're claiming is 100% non-biblical. No matter what kind of mental gymnastics they perform in their interpretations. So, what's the difference between normal, innocent clickbait, which is what the vast majority of creators use, and the malicious clickbait? Well, it's the people putting them out. Any normal, honest person with integrity and a conscience can't and doesn't want to be that dishonest, for a few or even a lot more views or money. Just like in real life. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got your unscrupulous lowlifes with zero integrity. We've all known people that have no problem bullshitting their way through life. Saying and doing whatever it takes to get whatever they want. No integrity, totally unscrupulous. Here's this week's stupid shit off the top of my head. All right. There's another kind of clickbait that doesn't fall into any of those categories, and it's my favorite. These are the ones done by all the nuts out there, and some of them are absolutely hilarious. Here's an example. This one's my fave. Like I said, I love Bigfoot videos, just for the laughs. Well, when I first saw this one, I was really angry about the title claim, and I'm thinking, you lived with Bigfoot and you didn't take any pictures? Right. But when I saw the small print on the thumbnail, I realized it was right up my alley. Here's a close-up. Can you see that small print? It says, "The big feet come in through my portal." Notice it says big feet, not Bigfoot. So obviously it happens all the time. So anyways, I'm not sure if these people actually are nutty people or just funny people doing parodies. And I don't rightly care. As long as they make me laugh, they're okay in my book. Well, that's about it. Hope you liked what I said. Any comments and questions, you know what to do. And remember, I like them all, good and bad. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe and like. Until next time, see you at the swamp.